Hello everyone, this is Matt from PCGamesN and I am joined by Kelly.
Hello.
Hello, Kelly has not been on the channel so much because you actually work in the background on PCGamesN,
Yeah,
don't
I'm
you?
kind of hidden most of the time.
Yeah, you make all the stuff work so that we can have all the lovely stuff that happens. But you are a massive Destiny fan, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you've got an obscene amount of hours in Destiny up to Rise of Iron. You've played it all, haven't you?
It's verging on 1,000 hours at this point.
Wow.
Which I don't like to admit very often.
But that means that you're perfectly qualified to join me in talking about the Inverted Spire, which is the strike that I got to play of Destiny 2.
Yes, I'm actually really excited to watch this footage because I kind of didn't look at any of this sort of when the gameplay reveal. I sort of went in it thinking I'll keep this as a bit of a surprise to myself, but I'm actually quite excited to watch this today.
Yeah, well, you should be excited because I think it's a really, really well-designed strike that we're launching into in a second. Here we go.
Well, they sort of really mastered strikes, I feel like, as a little gameplay component. The ones from Taken King and Rise of Iron, I think, were pretty brilliant, actually.
Yeah. So if any of you don't know what a strike is, if you've not had a chance to play Destiny before, a strike is a 3-player cooperative mission. And I guess they're a little bit like dungeons to a degree from like other games.
Yes, they're very like solo activities. They have like a separate little one-shot story to them, and
yeah. So you can see here these I've got the slightly kind of wider ship at the back. And those are two other, real life players. You know, these are actual cooperative players that were zooming down to the planet. I believe this is on Nessus, which is one of the new planets.
okay.
It's been taken over by the Vex, who are the machine race in Destiny, and it's kind of got this like weirdly sulfuric kind of odd like red fauna and stuff like that. So, how do you think already it looks compared to Destiny 1? I think they've kind of kept the art style fairly intact,
yes,
haven't they?
You can see they've updated the UI, but they've definitely made it a bit cleaner, sort of easier to look at, easier to keep track of all your abilities that are refreshing. The world looks beautiful.
Yeah,
I can't fault that at all.
Absolutely.
I can see sort of like all the Vex architecture from the first one, which I actually really like. The Vex were mainly on Venus in the first one, weren't they? Yeah. And
so you can see,
I really like that as a planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see, so these are the Vex, are the robot guys. The slightly bigger guys are the Cabal. And obviously the Cabal didn't have the biggest presence in Destiny 1, did they?
No, not at all.
But they're kind of like our main antagonists in this one. So these big guys there, that's a grenade. Obviously you get, so I should point out that I'm actually playing a hunter in this footage. So they're kind of, I guess they're more like they're kind of like almost like a rogue class maybe, Kelly?
Yes,
like,
definitely.
Like the ranger rogue sort of thing.
Powerful and a bit squishy, yeah.
Yeah, that was a shotgun I was just using there, and this is I believe that's probably a pulse rifle.
Are you playing the gunslinger class by any chance?
Or
is it the new one?
No, this is the gunslinger class. So this uses Golden Gun as the super, which we will get to see a bit later. The weapon I'm using here, I want to point out, is the Sunspot, which you've probably heard me talking about before, Kelly, in our more normal conversations. But this is an exotic weapon that I was really very fond of. It's powered by light, so it's got an element attached to it, and it's got just massive erupting kind of sort of like rounds in it.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's shooting shotgun shells rather than magnum kind of bullets like you'd expect out of a hand cannon.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really like how instead of like a revolver chamber, it's got this weird sort of round bubble that's in the back. That's really, really cool.
Bungie always kind of knocked out the park with hand cannons. I mean, like the Thorn and the Last Word from the first game are most people's favourite weapons, and this one looks really good as well. So I imagine a lot of people will really like it.
Absolutely, and obviously it being an exotic, it goes in. This is an elemental exotic because it's light powered, so it goes in your elemental slot, which is kind of like your secondary weapon.
Yes.
It used to be you had primaries and secondaries. Well, now you can have all sorts of weapons in those, but if it's elemental, it goes in kind of the second slot. But that does mean that ammo is abundant for it, so you can go absolutely to town. It's not like the power weapons that, as you can see in the slots at the bottom, bottom slot is a power weapon, which I've only got 3 bullets for at the moment. And obviously that's a shotgun, which is different, isn't it, from the last time? Shotguns didn't used to be considered power weapons.
No, shotguns fit into the secondary slot with like snipers and fusion rifles and everything. That'll be really interesting to see sort of how that change up like raid mechanics and stuff, because obviously that heavily relied on the fact that you sort of went in with your primary and then usually a sniper rifle or rocket launcher. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what people's loadouts look like in Destiny 2.
Absolutely. So we've just gone into a respawn restricted sort of zone. Now these are areas, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, where if your squad kind of gets wiped, that's it. You have to go back to a checkpoint.
Yeah.
And I guess that points out that we're in the slightly more kind of difficult area of the strike now. So obviously we're starting to go underground. We're starting to see enemies with kind of like orange health bars, which obviously points that they're a higher tier. They're kind of not so much mini bosses, but kind of maybe elite sort of units.
Yes, definitely, yeah. I can see that Minotaurs look just as annoying as they were in the first one. I see their shield's been revamped slightly so it covers their like entire body. Yeah. There's definitely been kind of like, even if you have played, like Kelly has, sort of like 900 hours of Destiny, there are definitely things that are here to kind of like, you know, slight revamps, slight touches. Yeah.
I mean, you can't quite fight enemies in exactly the same way before. We're seeing mostly Vex here. Oh, there we go. There's my super. That's the golden gun. Obviously it's like this fan the hammer sort of cannon that comes out that shoots massive kind of light bullets, really does loads of damage. And the goblins, obviously they have a slightly different kind of weak point, don't they? Because obviously most characters kind of, it's the head that's the weak point. With a Vex it tends to be more kind of like the stomach sort of area.
They usually have sort of giant glowing orbs wherever they're generally weakest. Does the revamped gunslinger have any new abilities? Have they changed up the grenade or anything that you've noticed?
So there's now 3 grenades for every single person, of which, if I remember rightly, the gunslinger, the one that I'm using here, is like a trip mine sort of thing.
Okay.
So I can't remember if this was in the original Destiny, because I didn't really play Hunter. I was more of a Titan for the majority of my Destiny campaign. But did they have a trip mine? Like it fires the laser grid out, and then if they pass through it...
Yes, they had the trip mine grenade. I think 2 of the Hunter classes had that.
Right.
And then there was like a swarm grenade as well, where it sort of scatters.
Yes, so that's still in here. These are gladiators. I think these guys are new, aren't they? These
they
Cabal guys.
They look very cool, actually.
Yeah, I like it. So the Hunter now has kind of a new special class ability, which is a dodge. I was... You know, it's probably quite obvious at the moment that this was being played for capture on a PlayStation 4. I've also played on PC. The PC is a really good port from what I've seen so far, developed by Vicarious Visions. So in PC you tap V if you want to use a class ability. It was circle in PlayStation.
Okay.
But yeah, by double tapping V or circle, you do a dodge as a hunter.
Yeah. And
the dodge that I got equipped here was that it reloads your weapon. So basically, if you've kind of got that, the gladiator kind of running at you, he's got his 2 swords out, he's like, I'm going to kill you. What you do is you've got no bullets left in your gun, so you can't do anything. But if you dodge, you get out of the way of his charge, and then suddenly you've got a gun full of bullets ready to fire again. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the dodge when they introduced it in the Night Stalker class. I kind of switched that to my main sort of subclass. Whilst playing, because I was a big sort of fan of it. There was also an exotic helmet that let you do it as any hunter class, I believe, which was quite good as well. But yeah, I'm glad that they've sort of implemented little class changes like that to make them a little bit more sort of distinctive from each other.
For sure. And so we've got kind of like a bit more of an open sort of area here, and kind of I think this is something that Bungie have always done particularly well across kind of like both Destiny and the Halo games. I think we're really, really well known for big sort of open areas, and we've got lots of enemies coming in from lots of different kind of areas around here. That was a nice throwing knife, completely missed.
It already looks much more sort of interactive. There's a lot more going on sort of the previous strikes. They were really interesting and really cool, they were very much sort of corridor shooters. This already feels
kind of a bit more open-y. So we've sort of like, you know, we had at the start, we had that kind of jumping puzzle section. Then we've come into here, which is kind of this nice big open combat arena with what feels like little pockets of battle going on around, which I think kind of Destiny 1 tended to be more like you flowed through to specific combat encounters rather than this kind of open area. And you'll see now, I'm fairly sure I kind of went a little bit lone wolf here. I can see that my super meter was already building up. And I was like, I can take these guys on.
Just went for it.
Yeah. Here, oh, there we go. There's the Warlock doing his Dawnblade ability, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's just it's a shame that I didn't actually get to capture as a warlock, but I really wanted to show you the Dawnblade, and you'll be able to see it. There's going to be loads of sort of really cool capture from Bungie that they'll release, showing you way more of the Dawnblade over time. But it's just, it feels incredible to use.
That super did look really excited me. That looks. I was always a massive fan of melee weapons in this. And every time they sort of implemented them for little strikes, they sort of became my favourite, so this looks great.
Yeah, here we go. This is me going on my own, trying to just clear out this bunker with like a mini boss in it and some pretty beefy Cabal units. I can't remember, were these Falnax Cabal were in it maybe?
Yes,
before?
they were.
And they had shields before, didn't they?
Yeah, they were basically very stationary units. Yeah, it's nice that the sort of the new unit they introduced for this actually come at you. The Cabal felt very defensive as a race of enemies, so it's nice that they've just got a guy with 2 massive knives to go running at you now. Yeah,
they've always reminded me a bit of the hunters from Halo, in the fact that they were really big, powerful units. They used to mostly stay back because they got the fusion cannon, I think they were called, from Halo, which was like this massive kind of green stream of just absolute death that would come down. So here we go. I'm just checking out my abilities there.
The new abilities page looks great.
Yeah, I love the art on it. The kind of like that. It's almost concept art, and it slightly moves when you look across the kind of skill trees. I think it absolutely. I think I've heard people say before, I absolutely wouldn't argue that Destiny just has some of the best design menus in games. Really good fonts, really clear kind of and concise when it comes to trying to figure out what weapons you've got available to you and stuff like that. So here's another kind of little bit of jumpy bit. So we turn these devices on, which powers these kind of mad vacuum launch pads, that's nice. Bringing you into another combat encounter, and you can see I just love this Sunspot pistol.
It looks like it packs a hell of a punch.
It really does. I mean, there's a nice little dance emote as well. Yeah, emotes are back, as if there was any doubt there.
No, yeah.
And then
they were basically the only way you could kind of communicate in the first one.
Yeah. I'm kind of there wasn't anything in it to do any more than that. There was kind of like there was a point and a wave and a dance.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, there we go. See, I told you those were bad guys. So you can see now we might be in a restricted zone for respawning here, but obviously unless the team is wiped, you can still respawn each other, can't you? So that was who picked me up? Was that? I love the names of these names were picked by Bungie, so you know we didn't get a choice. But there's kind of like I think I'm called Fatty Kit Kats or something like that.
I could tell you'd go for a name like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was a dodge there that you just saw. You probably see me pull that off a few times. And that's a grenade. There we go. Got trapped in the laser grid there. And these kind of drop pods that you can see coming down, these seem to be something that the Cabal can use just in general, because have you seen any of the footage from Homecoming, Kelly, which is the first mission of the game?
Yes.
So if you've seen Homecoming, any of you guys that are watching at home, it's the first mission of the single player campaign, and it basically involves the tower, which is the main sort of base where humanity kind of live now, being assaulted by the Cabal. And they just come down in these, what I describe as they're like giant molten bowling balls. They just sort of like crash down like meteorites and then, you know, fall apart, and then great nasty Cabal soldiers come out. There we go. So that Titan just brought me back to life, which is great, which means I can start stabbing all these dogs. Sorry if you like dogs, but I mean, these are fairly nasty looking dogs, aren't they? Yeah, you'll notice that oh, there we go. That's a jump. That'll get me out of the way.
Did you fire yourself out of the arena and left your teammates?
Yeah, I've left. I mean, one of them came with me. There's Giganto. Yeah.
Oh.
I hope it's gigantic guns he's got. There we go. That's a nice dodge there. Reloaded, isn't it? And you've got were incinerators in previous games, Kelly?
Pass.
See, I mostly remember the Cabal only having like 2 or 3 different units.
Yes, so there was the phalanx, sort of like the standard sort of foot soldiers, then the scions,
yeah,
and then
I don't remember. I mean, I might be wrong about these, but these guys have kind of got the. And I know this is a game cliche, but I like guys with flamer tanks because you then get to shoot the tank.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'd say these were a little bit more. Whereas a lot of games that don't kind of deal with health bars, it's kind of like one shot in the tank and they explode. There's a little bit more of kind of a grind with them. But I actually have decided to quite like Destiny having health bars and kind of a bit of a health grind, because it means that you get to try out all the cool abilities that you have and you get to spend a little bit longer with those encounters.
Yes, no, definitely. Sort of great as you sort of work as a team as well, and you sort of take out a big encounter as it takes sort of a few minutes to do.
Yeah, and you can combine your skills and stuff like that, and you get to see everything going on, which is cool.
Yeah.
We're working our way through some more Vex architecture here, but did you notice as we were looking down, there's that big spinning drill sort of thing?
Yes, yeah, I saw that. That's. I hope you go over to that.
Yeah, we're going there now, and this I really like because it becomes more of a kind of puzzle platformer. So we've had the jumping puzzles before, but now we've got to try and get across this arena whilst these massive kind of excavating bucket drill things come round, and we'll see. Oh, I've got trapped.
Oh, and it's just knocked you straight out of the arena.
Yeah, it's it kind of like when you don't know what to do, and they're not exactly moving. There we go. That's a squad wipe, I think. Is that? There we go. Yeah. So this is what happens. Your light fades away, and we all have to restart from a checkpoint. I think the checkpoints are probably as fair as they were in original Destiny. So that means that it can mean that you've got to do quite a lot again.
Yes, especially if you wipe sort of towards the end of an encounter, you will have to sort of redo it all again.
But I don't think it's not unfair. I don't feel that it was like, it's like, had that have put me back to pretty much the start of the strike, then I would have been massively infuriated. But you know, kind of like, this is only like 2 combat encounters.
Yeah, it's never, you never feel like it's being unfair to you, even sort of in raid scenarios, and it adds sort of that, sort of ups the stakes a little bit.
Yeah,
there's always that sort of, you know, that drive to not mess up, essentially, not cost the team to like an extra half an hour of time on it.
Because I guess, would you consider a strike as almost like a training ground for raids?
Yes, definitely, especially up to sort of towards the Taken King. During the Taken King, they started sort of introducing certain raid mechanics during the story missions, which they hadn't previously done. So the strikes very much felt like, yeah, this is sort of, you know, your first baby steps into sort of getting used to what a raid entails. Yeah,
and obviously only having 3 players, you don't have to have quite the amount of coordination.
Yes, definitely.
And there's not kind of like, I know there's a raid in the first Destiny game where you kind of have to line up shots and you have to shoot things.
During Vault of Glass, there's the orbs that you have to shoot in order, and then if you miss one, that's usually a team wipe.
Yeah, and kind of like in a strike, you're never going to have anything that's quite that complicated, and obviously you've only got 2 other people with you, so it's designed to kind of be, you know, an easier way, but it still kind of relies on that basic principle of 3 people kind of working together. Generally, the combat encounters require 3 people, you know, to survive, essentially.
Yeah.
And here we are, we're just trying to dodge these massive... I really like this.
This is great.
I don't really remember anything from Destiny 1 Strike that was quite designed in this same way.
Yeah. So I don't know if you played it or not, but there was a PS4 exclusive Strike, actually with the Vex, where you faced a mind at the end, and one of the mechanics was that he would summon a barrier that would push everything towards one side of the sort of arena, and then it would push you back, and while you were doing that, as a guardian, you had to carry an orb that was incredibly heavy and slowed your walking down. And you had to slot that orb into different places, and that would sort of bring the barrier down and allow you to then attack the Vex Mind, and that was probably one of the best strikes they did in Destiny 1.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I unfortunately am one of those sort of people that I do actually have a PlayStation 4, but I ended up buying Destiny on Xbox One, so which is why we've never played together.
Yeah.
Kelly. But yeah, so yeah, it sounds like I've missed out on one of the best strikes that they designed. I do really like strikes in general, but just playing this, it felt like something just far more advanced. Well, not necessarily far more, but it did feel like if you've kind of been looking at Destiny 2 so far and thinking, it kind of looks like what I've played before, this strike was the one that was like, you know what, I actually think there is... It's the same game, but there have been notable kind of improvements and changes to it. And like the level of detail that's gone into this strike is what I felt kind of really pushed that for me.
100% feels like they've taken everything sort of on board that sort of people weren't sort of particularly happy with Destiny 1, and they've sort of they've definitely ramped up to 11 by the looks of it.
Yeah, it just felt really exciting, you know, so much things going on. You know, we're moving into what is the end sort of section of this strike, where we're going to go up against a boss, and you've just been talking about Vex mines. Well, you might want to say hello to the modular mines now, where so we've got these guys. Remember these guys, these harpies.
God, it still feels like a really good balanced length as well, because obviously strikes are meant to be repeated on a weekly basis for loot drops and stuff, so this feels like sort of something that you could do multiple times in an evening. Yeah,
because obviously you get the strike playlists, don't you?
Yeah.
You can see that was the Warlock doing his Dawnblade attack again.
Still looks so good.
Yeah. I actually think as well that the Warlock has a slightly better jump now, because obviously the Warlock has always had what I think has been perceived to be the worst jump, which is kind of a single jump and then you glide and float.
Yes.
Whereas I'm fairly sure he's got a bit more lift this time, so I think his jump is more useful.
That's good, because I sort of had all three characters but played mostly on a hunter, so going to any of the other classes, their jumps did feel a little bit odd.
Yeah, because obviously the hunter, as you might have noticed me doing in this video, has a double jump, and it's just double jump that's equipped at the moment, but you can get up to a triple jump.
He trod on you.
Yeah, he trod on me. He's a big boy. He's just a big, massive transformer man.
I always did sort of like Vex encounters for just the sheer amount of enemies they weren't afraid to throw at you.
They do, yeah. And I guess it's because essentially they could just manufacture themselves.
Yes.
And I like the kind of the way that they like materialize into the world. I guess they kind of got this digital artifacting.
Yeah.
So I think they're a very interestingly designed. Right. I actually, I've always quite liked Bungie's approach to enemy design, and I always think kind of like obviously. The idea of Destiny has its kind of roots in the way that Halo had got the Covenant, which obviously was a different set of races all joined together. And like the Vex was kind of one of the more interesting races that were in Destiny. And you can see with this strike how the Vex can just like, they can
sort of distort the world as they please.
The world underneath them, essentially. So you get...
No, it's...
And now you get, he's going to play The Floor is Lava with us. Which is, I guess, a bit like, you know how you were saying with that other strike where they kind of try and push you out the way and force you into... That's kind of what he can do in this stage of the boss battle.
No, I really like that they've taken sort of a lot of elements from things that worked really well in the previous Destiny. Like, this feels quite sort of reminiscent of the Prison of Elders, where you'd have modifiers in that, like, the floor is lava or the air is poisonous and sort of things like that. So
cool.
It's nice that they've sort of incorporated that into strikes to make them just that little bit extra exciting. Yeah,
and I can just imagine sort of like whenever, even though I'm going to guess this is quite an early strike just because it's what got shown to us and we've only been shown sort of early grade sort of stuff as well. But like I could imagine this coming up on my strike playlist and still being really super happy to play it.
Yes, definitely.
And yeah, so as for anybody that hasn't played Destiny before and kind of is trying to figure out where it sort of places, that's the side of it that I think feels a bit more like an MMO, because you'd be expected to do like an MMO dungeon multiple times over and over and over, and it just kind of becomes part of... There's obviously the campaign to go through, but I think the strikes and raids are what become your main sort of bulk of gameplay. Yeah,
sort of every week after you're done with the story, it's kind of feels very much like, okay, put this aside, and now sort of every week I do the strikes, nightfalls, raids, any other little sort of... Obviously they've introduced quite a lot of sort of new activities in this, like the treasure chests and stuff like that. And hopefully there'll be a lot more to do sort of on patrols, because patrols were definitely a bit of a weak point in the first one. They just didn't have this sort of longevity, and they just weren't as interesting as everything else in the game.
Yeah, well, the patrol essentially was where you got sort of landed in the sort of open-ish world. You'd land on a planet, and there'd be sort of like, they're like little beacons, aren't they?
Yes.
And you answer them, and it's like, oh, can you go and fetch this, or can you go and sort of destroy this, stuff like that.
It was very much just pick up materials.
Yeah.
Go to this place, scan a thing.
Absolutely. So I think kind of like having those extra things that will be going on around the world, like as you say, there are treasure chests to go and find, there are lost sectors to go and do.
Oh yes, yeah, the new people to talk to and everything.
Yeah, loads of new kind of activities out there, but I think while that means that the overall kind of world is going to have more for you to do in terms of when you finish the campaign and stuff like that, there's always going to have that. Obviously strikes are going to be kind of like one of the bulk of the things that you will do. And I think kind of like once upon a time there would have been a period where I'd think, oh, do I really want to be doing strikes over and over again? But I kind of think, because I'm not really an MMO sort of person, but what I'm super into shooters.
Yes.
And you know, when Overwatch gets like an event and kind of like you just can't stop playing it.
Yeah.
Like when Uprising came out, I played the Uprising like the PvE mission they did. Gosh. Maybe 50 or 60 times within that short period of time.
100%, yeah.
And so now I feel like I can really believe that I would do a strike playlist every weekend or something like that.
Yeah, it's because sort of the strikes aren't a particularly long activity. It's so easy for them to just become part of like your weekly routine. Sort of you log on refresh day on Tuesday, and you're like, oh, you know, look at all the sweet loot I can now pick up by playing for a few hours. And that was definitely just all of the draw to the game, really. Like.
Oh dear, I think, am I the last man standing?
Oh no.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
And that's the last stage of the boss as well, so that we'll have to try it again. Hopefully Freezebox and Gigant O can pull it together. Well, here we go again. So yeah, so I guess this is kind of slightly frustrating to a degree that you have to start the boss from the very beginning, but kind of like, I guess the whole point is that you're supposed to be able to test your endurance to do all three kind of elements of the boss. Here he comes again. So what kind of weapons would you like to see return that would have been useful in kind of like strike encounters? Especially against the Vex, let's say, because each kind of enemy type has a specific kind of tool set that you sort of want to be equipped with.
I definitely like to see some good sniper rifles. Sniper rifles were pretty much universally agreed on to be the best sort of weapon for PvE, whereas like shotguns ruled in PvP.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting actually, because you know, to switch up that meta, both of those weapons are now power weapons, which means that your ammo reserves for it will be so much lower. And
you have to think whether sort of as you're going into a PvP match, do I want a machine gun or do I want a shotgun? So that'll be really, really interesting to see. I always had a bit of a soft spot for hand cannons.
Sure, yeah.
So the more of them, the merrier. More melee weapons. They sort of, obviously when they first introduced the sword and then later on the axe in Rise of Iron, both of them felt so good to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like there were occasionally elements in strikes before where you'd have kind of like that sword. There's one quite early on, isn't there, in original Destiny, where you get a sword, like a massive, or maybe was that in the Dark Below, was it?
It's the Dark Below because you have it as part of Crota's End Raid.
Yes, you do, yeah. I can remember getting that and like feeling super powerful because it's so heavy. But yeah, against the Vex, I guess the Vex have, quite a few of them have shields, don't they? Yeah,
with the Vex you kind of want to approach them from afar.
And I guess sort of like if they've got shields, because energy weapons tend to be fairly adept at kind of shredding shields, don't they?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, and then obviously with guys like this, I've realised that my dodge is coming in very handy, because at least he's kind of cannon, he's fast firing, but the projectiles are slow enough to be able to get a good dodge going.
Yes, yeah. It'll be nice to see a return of a lot of sort of elemental weapons. I don't think they really knew what to do with them in Destiny 1. Is sort of they were the only thing that people wanted, basically. They wanted their primary and secondary weapons to be elemental. And when sort of like Bungie came out and sort of with each expansion they'd release a bunch of weapons that didn't have any elements in them, people sort of weren't particularly happy because they just weren't as useful as the elemental ones.
Sure.
So it's nice that they've sort of switched up the weapon loadouts now, so there's room for sort of both of them to
yeah,
work.
because you have to, like, for you to fill those 3 slots, you have to have a weapon that's kinetic only, which only shoots bullets, and then the second weapon you have is an elemental only, and you can't mix and match those between those slots, so you can't take 2 elemental sort of like weapons in. But obviously what it means that you can do now is that you could have an elemental hand cannon and a kinetic hand cannon, so that means that we can take 2 hand cannons in with us.
I am quite excited by that prospect.
Yeah.
Just sort of dual wielding hand cannons. That'll be great.
Yeah, and I'm quite excited, obviously, playing it on PC, because I'll actually be able to fire a hand cannon with a fair amount of accuracy this time. I mean, it's okay, sort of like, obviously, playing the Hunter Golden Gun is my super in this, and kind of having him being so big meant it was great, because I could shoot him fairly accurately.
You're always going to hit.
Yeah, but, like, the smaller ones, like, the goblins aren't so bad because they've got such wide heads.
Yes.
But if you're going up against something like the Fallen, and you know the Fallen are a little bit more bug-like, aren't they? They've got very small anti-heads.
Quick, yeah.
Yeah, they become like super difficult to hit with a hand cannon.
You're still probably a better aim than me. That's the thing.
I think I'm just about holding my own here. Like I wouldn't want to say that I was doing particularly well, but at least I'm hitting his head.
Yeah.
For the most part, and obviously that's it's an auto rifle, isn't it? I'm using here. I think I said it was.
It's nice to see that they've the auto rifle looks quite good.
Yeah, I was fairly pleased. Here we go. Let's get that supercharge out, man. It looks like I'm holding it in reserve. There we go, with grenades. There's so much of the combat that feels great moment to moment because you are. It's not like an MMO. Sorry, an NNO. What am I saying? An MMO where you've got kind of like you're based entirely on cooldowns because you've got 3. And it means that whereas in an MMO you kind of feel like you're just waiting on that next cooldown, at least you feel like you're doing something useful in between. But yeah, we'll point out the other guys. I've said obviously about my dodge. The other guys, and I don't seem to see them using it so much in this strike, but the Titan can lay down a shield.
I've seen it a few times. I was going to ask if you sort of found it particularly useful because it's quite a small shield. Yeah,
so there are 2 shields, but the one he's got equipped is like a chest-high wall, like the classic cover shooter shield. When I played as a Titan, found it to be less useful than I thought it would be, but I played as a Titan in PvP rather than PvE. Oh, we finished it! Yay!
Nice.
Yeah, in PvP I found it just fairly useless because you just get all 4 of the enemies gang up on you and shred it to pieces. The Warlocks are better, I feel. He can create like a little rift which heals or increases attack power, I think.
Okay, that's really useful. They've
Yeah, so I'm really pleased. But anyway, that is the Inverted Spire. That is a strike. Did you like that, Kelly? Did you think that looks cool?
I thought that was really great, actually. That looked wicked, to be honest.
Yeah. I just some of the most exciting gameplay that I've had this year. I really enjoyed it. If you like the video, do please give us a like and a subscribe if you want to hear more from us. It's all, we all do all sorts of PC games, and there'll be loads of Destiny in the upcoming sort of like months as we get towards release. And until next time, take care and have fun.